All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the Aquatic Invasive Species Decontamination and Meat Fin webinar. I'm Maria Marlin, and I'm the Outreach Specialist for the Washington Invasive Species Council, and I'm going to just go over a few housekeeping rules here for the webinar. So let's see. Firstly, we are recording, and the recordings are going to be available on our website. So you can review the recordings and listen and share if you know people who weren't able to make it today. Now, please put all questions for the speakers in the Q&A box, and that's going to be on your Zoom toolbar. It says Q&A. So that's where all questions go. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end, but you can put your questions in there at any time, and we will make sure they are addressed at the end of the webinar. And the chat is really only for like technical difficulties. You can put any questions for us in there if you're having problems with the webinar. We are going to present a code word at some point during the webinar. The Department of Agriculture for Washington and Oregon both have approved one pesticide recertification credit. So if you're seeking that, please listen. And finally, if you lose connection to the webinar, you actually just use the same link to rejoin. And the invitation also has a phone number. So if you are unable to reconnect with the link on the computer, you are always welcome to call in, and you can at least hear the audio that way. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin Bush, the Executive Coordinator for the Council, to provide a brief introduction.
Great. Thank you, Marianne, and welcome everyone to this webinar. Really appreciate you all joining. This week is a really special week. Governor Jay Inslee proclaimed February 20th to February 26th as Invasive Species Awareness Week in Washington. This is in solidarity with events being held around the nation. And we're really pleased to be putting the spotlight on the Department of Fish and Wildlife's efforts to prevent aquatic invasive species today. In terms of invasive species, we know that there's over 200 different types, whether they're terrestrial or aquatic plants, animals, or diseases, including insects. And we're really lucky in Washington because some of the worst invasive species aren't yet present. And from our own economic studies, we know that some of the worst species are actually aquatic invasive species. And we're very lucky in that a lot of the worst aquatic invasive species are not yet present or are very limited in distribution, so we can take some preventative action to stop them. And really pleased to be putting the spotlight on this, but there's something that you all can do to help, and that's by taking simple preventative actions in your everyday lives to avoid introducing and spreading invasive species. We can all work together and we can solve this problem, and it just takes us all doing a little bit of effort in our daily lives. So thank you all, and look forward to hearing this great talk today.
Great, thank you, Justin. All right, I am going to turn it over to Jessica Gillespie from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife to get us started.
Hi guys. All right, let me see if I can do this. How are we looking?
Good.
All right.
We just need the presentation mode, and then.
So Jessica, we see it in editor mode. There's a button that says play from beginning.
Yeah, but that upper left, yeah.
Started as a slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Is it working now?
Maybe hit the from beginning.
So like top left of the screen is where it says like autosave file. There's like a little presentation icon with a place sign?
Well, I did, and it showed on mine.
Oh,
Do you have two screens?
No, it's just showing the presentation on mine.
Let's see. Do this.
So Jessica, if you have two screens, where you're sharing, there should be like a presenter view. You can click swap screens, or potentially go back to that green button and stop sharing and share whichever screen is presented.
Hey, Justin, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Nick.
Okay, thank you.
So Jessica, we still don't see it. Do you have two screens or one screen?
I only have one screen.
Maria, do you have a copy, like a backup copy?
I don't have a copy of the of her slides, but if Nick Ramsey wants to go first, and then if Jessica emails her slides to me, then we can just swap those two sections. And I can show Jessica's slide after Nick Ramsey goes. Does that sound good? Okay. Okay, Jessica, yeah, if you email me your slides, I can show them for you.
All right, I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. No worries.
It's all right.
All right, Nick Ramsey. Also from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, is going to talk to us about watercraft decontamination.
Could see it, but we do not see it currently.
Me just a second here. When I went to exit out of it, it exited out of the full screen. There we go. I think we got it. I'll help Jessica too. The problem she's having is that it's one full screen or the other. So the webinar is not overlapping, so she can get back to it. So she has to exit out of her PowerPoint to get back to you. That's what was just going on with mine too. But
Okay.
Sure.
hi, I'm Nick Ramsey. I'm the Washington State Watercraft Inspection Station Supervisor. So I'm here to present about the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife AIS Watercraft Inspection Program. And our station placement strategy is a perimeter defense located in eastern and western Washington. The zones were created to intercept watercraft, and our main focus is protection of the Columbia River Basin. Is it going to let me go forward? Yep. So the Eastern Washington AIS zone, the stations include Clarkston, Pasco, and Spokane. So we're covering I-90 coming into the state at state line with Idaho. Pasco is covering the I-82 traffic and 395 north coming into the Columbia watershed. And Clarkston's actually a new station we added this last year with a grant through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And the reason we chose that location for a watercraft inspection station is some of the commercial traffic. The commercial haulers have figured out where all of the watercraft check stations were, and it became a detour route for people that were hauling watercraft that were known infected. We had a couple of them year before last go through Clarkston, and we had to basically run them down at their destination over in Seattle, and one actually down in Clarkston. So with that watercraft inspection station down there, we'll get into the stats for it, but we kind of closed that gap coming into the Lower Snake and the Columbia River watershed where some of that infected traffic was getting around us. On the western side, we have Cle Elum. It's a pretty well established seasonal inspection station up just on the eastern side of Snoqualmie Pass. They catch I-90 eastbound traffic coming into the Columbia watershed. And last year we opened up Ridgefield just north of Vancouver, intercepting watercraft coming north on I-90 out of the Southern California and the southwestern United States impacted waters. So we also use roving stations and roving patrols on our high use water bodies and that sort of thing in eastern and western Washington to intercept watercraft carrying aquatic invasive species that may or may not have been checked entering the state. This is our watercraft inspection team from 2022. As you can see, there are really not a lot of us. I think we were up to 16 or 17 folks working for us in the 2022 season. So the operating schedule, Spokane and Pasco have been year-round operations, and Spokane actually went to 24/7 operations starting in May last year. And we're 7 days a week there, 7 days a week in Pasco, and 365 days a year. Ridgefield is, due to manning, is open 7 days a week. We are at the port of entry at Ridgefield, as well as doing roving patrols there. Clarkston, we were open 7 days a week. We had minimal staff down there, so we were only open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and during the summertime we moved it to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. To capture some of the morning fishing crew from out of state and that sort of thing. Cle Elum is a seasonal watercraft inspection station. It's our second busiest watercraft inspection station. We managed to be open 6 days a week last year. We managed to get open on the 16th of April in 2022. We really wanted to be open in February, but there was still 22 feet of snow at the Bullfrog DOT, and there was no way to get watercraft in there. So for our 2019 to 2022 statewide stats, you can see that we were down just a little bit here last year. Ooh, gosh darn it. Well, I guess I can go back. Here we go. We were down on inspections just a little bit. We had an extremely wet and windy spring out here. Typically our heavy boating season kicks off with the Memorial Day weekend, and it was 40 degrees and raining sideways for 2 weeks during that time frame. Anyway, so we did really well last year, just a little short of the 2021 totals. We did have more operating days with the addition of Clarkston and Ridgefield, and we intercepted 25 mussel boats. One thing to note on that is 2022. We have by the end of 2022, we have officially intercepted and decontaminated watercraft carrying adult zebra and or quagga mussels in all 12 months of the year now. So Spokane, a little just short of 24,000 inspections. About 4,700 of those were last on positive water bodies. 23 of those watercraft coming in had adult zebra mussels attached to them. So we did 23 full decons, about 200, 180, 200 plant and standing water decons. And the reason that the standing water decons are important is because those particular watercraft last boated on waters that were positive or contaminated with zebra and quagga mussels, and the eggs and the veligers, the larval stage, can exist in the water for up to 25 days if the conditions are just right. So if you have a ballast boat, a wakeboard boat coming in from another state that's been on infected waters, they could be carrying upwards of 1,000 gallons of contaminated water. And the first thing that they do when they launch is pump all of that stuff into our lakes. So those standing water decons are pretty important. The plant decons, everybody's clean, drained, and dry. They at least they think they are. And 200 of those watercraft, we ended up pulling everything from curly leaf pondweed to Eurasian water milfoil. Actually, some of the watercraft looked like they were trailing Medusa down the highway. So Pasco, 402 inspection days. We did a lot of plant decons down there, and we're also catching New Zealand mud snail down there on some of the watercraft that have been moored at some of the marinas on the lower Columbia and other places, and we don't want them critters moving around to other water bodies. They pretty much wreak havoc on fish populations. They're egg eaters. So about 9,000 inspections down there. Almost half, a little over half of those were last on positive waterways. So we're catching a lot of traveling watercraft at that check station. Up at Cle Elum, with the late spring that we got up there, this is where we were short our inspections for the year. We only had 2 folks up there. We could not find anybody qualified to go to work. So just to put a plug in, we are starting a recruitment. We are hiring 3 more people up at Cle Elum. If you know anybody that wants to make a difference and keep aquatic invasive species out of the Columbia watershed, please have them contact us. We are also hiring a couple down in Clarkston and a couple in Ridgefield if anybody happens to be interested. But 309 watercraft came through there, or 306 watercraft came through there, trailing aquatic invasive weeds. So plant decons, snails, frogs. We got some crayfish up there, and we actually got our first zebra mussel boat up there this summer. So like I said, Cle Elum's our second busiest check station, right behind Spokane. Ridgefield, 236 inspection days, a little over 2,200 inspections. The vast majority of those watercraft were traveling and last on positive waters. So 4 standing water decontaminations, 15 plant decons. We also got a myriad of snails, frogs, and other aquatic fauna. So we did actually catch one of the watercraft movement notices and were able to decon on site. Clarkston, just short of 200 inspection days, about 2,500 inspections. And the placement of that brand new watercraft inspection station paid off with us catching a zebra mussel boat. It originated from the Great Lakes. it had been sitting in the water, and there were some engine problems and some welds that needed to be done. The engine problems were caused by it being infested with zebra mussels out of the water body of origin in the Great Lakes. So it was actually being sent back to the manufacturer at Thunderjet. And our folks down there were able to intercept that mussel boat and decontaminate it because Thunderjet was going to do the welds and a 2-day turnaround on the watercraft, and we're actually going to test this boat out to make sure the engine was running properly and the welds were actually holding and not leaking anymore. And they were going to launch about 400 yards from our check station on the Lower Snake with attached zebra mussels. 117 plant decons. We got some snails down there as well. So clean, drain, and dry between each and every use. Clean watercraft take less than 2 minutes for an inspection, and it helps us prevent the spread of AIS. If anybody has any questions, my contact information, I'll leave it up for a few minutes, is attached here, and I'll keep checking the questions and answers and see if there's anything that we can help people out with. But have a great day.
Thank you so much, Nick. All right. Let's see. So if you want to stop your share, I have Jessica's slides. Jessica, I'm happy to share your slides. And then you just tell me next slide. We'll go from there. Thank you, Nick. All right.
Okay, we'll try it this way.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Jessica Gillespie, and I am the supervisor of Spokane's Watercraft Inspection Station. And I'll be talking a little bit about the AIS that we're concerned about in Washington. And that's a non-native aquatic organism whose introduction causes economic or environmental harm. How do they get moved around? Generally by human actions, either accidentally when you don't clean your watercraft between uses, or intentionally when somebody throws some sport fish into a lake where it doesn't belong. There are several other ways to, letting loose pets that they didn't want to kill. Why should we care? Because the damages caused by them affect everyone, and it is a domino effect between economic, environmental, industrial, commercial, recreational harm. Environmental damage. According to the EPA, invasive species have been involved in roughly 70% of this century's extinctions of native aquatic species, and 42% of current endangered species are impacted significantly by them. And a lot of this comes from habitat loss. They like to take over and destroy critical, salmon habitat. Economic damage. Damages from invasive species, including damages expressed in monetary terms, have been estimated as high as $138 billion per year. And this is where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure comes into play, because we spend a lot less trying to prevent AIS from coming into the state than we do trying to manage or control them once they're here. There's multiple species of AIS that can quickly and completely fill all surfaces of pipes, filters, and screens, which diminishes the flow rate and causes blockages and shutdowns of, electric and nuclear power plants. And then damages to drinking water systems equals higher water costs for consumers. And damages to irrigation systems equals higher food costs for consumers. And in Washington, the farming irrigation systems have thousands of miles of pipe and hundreds of pumps and filters. And as you can see, it only takes about 6 months for invasive mussels to completely clog a 4-inch water pipe. Recreational impact. The colonization of AIS on boats, docks, beaches, and piers reduces recreational opportunities such as fishing, hunting, hiking, boating, and wildlife viewing for those that do frequent or live on water bodies. Okay, and we'll go over some of the species of concern for Washington. There are more than are listed here, but I only have so much time. Our biggest concern is zebra and quagga mussels, as Nick Ramsey went over a little bit. They're just a small freshwater bivalve mollusk. They only grow about 1 to 2 inches long. The two are closely related and have similar biology, so I'll often use the two species interchangeably. They're native to Eastern Europe. They were first discovered in the US in the late 1980s. They were discharged with ballast water of ocean-going ships into the Great Lakes area. Washington does not have any yet, and we're trying to keep it that way. What makes them so invasive? They have several characteristics that makes them such a big concern. They reproduce rapidly. A single female can produce 40,000 eggs in a single spawning event, and under ideal conditions can continuously spawn throughout the year. This adds up to about 1 million eggs per year per female. The larvae are microscopic and float freely in the water column, which allows them to quickly move throughout river systems. They have byssal threads, as you can see in that top photo. They're just little hairs that allow them to cling to most hard surfaces. They then secrete a glue that makes them extremely difficult to remove, and that gives them an advantage over native mussels that don't have that. They're also filter feeders, and each mussel can filter up to 1 liter of water per day, removing large amounts of microscopic plants and animals from the water. They're one of the few species that can crash an entire food web by quickly removing the base of the food chain, phytoplankton. Here you can see how they've spread through the US since they were originally introduced. In 1988, they were just establishing populations in the Great Lakes area. By 98, they had exploded throughout the entire eastern United States. And then by 2008, they had crossed the 100th meridian line and into the Western US. But you can see after that, we've done a pretty good job of preventing them from moving around much farther than that. European green crab. They were first reported in Washington in 1998. We focus our efforts on monitoring and controlling them now. They pose a threat to the shellfish industry and critical salmon habitat. They compete with the Dungeness crab despite the notable size difference. An adult can consume 40 half-inch clams a day, as well as other crabs its own size. The Asian clam, they're another small one. They only grow to about 1 inch. We have no similar native species in Washington, so they stand out pretty well. They were first discovered here in 1938. They're now widespread throughout Washington and the entire US. They also reproduce quickly and form large colonies. They've clogged waterways and pipes that feed nuclear and electrical power plants. And the nutrients that are excreted by them encourages the growth of toxic algae blooms. New Zealand mud snail, even smaller. They only grow to be about 4 to 6 millimeters outside of their native range. They were first discovered in Washington in 2002 and can now be found throughout the lower Columbia and Snake River and a few various lakes. They can grow to densities of hundreds to thousands per square foot. They feed on algae and detritus that are important to native aquatic insects that help make up that base of our food chain. And they're nearly impossible to remove once they're in a water body. The invasive plants. There's definitely more species that are listed here, but they all have similar effects on the environment. A lot of them were introduced because they were used as aquarium plants, and then those aquariums were dumped. They create dense mats that choke out the native species and block sunlight, which encourages the growth of toxic algae blooms. Crayfish. Washington only has one native species of crayfish, so this one's pretty easy. The native signal crayfish is pretty smooth throughout its whole body, and it has kind of bluish joints. I know you've probably seen them if you frequent the rivers around here. Compared to the red swamp crayfish, which the adults are noticeably red and they have bright bumps on their claws. The rusty crayfish, which has a rust mark on its sides, and the virile crayfish, which has yellow nodules on its pinchers. The northern pike. He is a highly voracious predator, and it will eat anything and everything it can catch. It was introduced illegally in Washington as a sport fish and is now found in the lower Spokane River, Lake Roosevelt, Lake Washington, the Kettle River, and Box Canyon Reservoir. They're trying to keep it out of the lower Columbia to protect the salmon habitat. They're considered a serious threat to native and endangered salmon populations. And they found that gill netting is the best way to reduce their numbers, as well as putting a bounty on them. And residents are encouraged to kill them if they're caught. Do not re-release them. And then what can we do? Clean, drain, dry your boats between uses. Clean off the bottom of your waders so you're not tracking seeds or spores or larvae or anything to a new area. That's all I got.
All right, thank you so much, Jessica. Let's see, share. Before we turn it over to Nick Noss, there's actually one question that relates to yours and Nick Ramsey's talk. So I'm just going to read that. And the question is, are boat owners fined and/or charged decontamination fees when contaminated watercraft are identified?
I'll field that question for you, Maria.
Thank you.
Our RCW states that it's illegal to knowingly transport aquatic invasive species into the state of Washington. So our laws are set up so that if the watercraft owner comes in, even if they knowingly have AIS attached to their watercraft, our goal is to decontaminate that watercraft so that when it leaves our inspection station, it's ready to go to the very next lake and safely launch without any risk to our waterways. So no, there are no fines for coming in, getting an inspection and getting your watercraft decontaminated if necessary. The only fines that we would levy is if somebody knowingly transported them into the state.
Great, thank you, Nick. All right, it is now time to introduce Nick Noss and his canine partner, Finn. Nick, I'm not sure if you have a video for us.
Yeah, I got a video ready.
Awesome,
Let me
thank you.
share that for you. Let's see. that showing up?
No,
Of course not.
did you click share screen on Zoom?
Yeah, and it didn't like me. One more second.
Okay.
Share screen. Edge tab. There we go.
Perfect. Yes, we can see that.
Is it in there? Let's look. Is this the right one? Where is it? Where is it? Show me. Show me. Oh, is that it? Is that it? Good boy. Good boy. Where is it? Show me. Oh, right there. Is that it?
The last 2 years of counseling, right?
That was great. Thank you so much, Nick.
All right, we're back. Yeah, so like I said, education is absolutely huge for what we do. We're not going to catch all the boats coming into Washington. There's no way we're going to do that. But, you know, if we can reach all these people before they get into that area where they're buying boats, or people who already have boats, and tell them what we're doing and why we're doing it, I think that is by far the biggest impact we can have. I'll put on Finn because no one wants to see me.
Oh. Do you want to give a little background to us, Tiffin, like where he came from?
Yeah, so he was actually abandoned down in Texas. He's kind of a runaway risk, so I think that might be the thing that happened. But basically, the rancher said he didn't want him anymore. So he was actually found and put into the Wounded Warrior Project to be a disabled person's companion. But he is quite rambunctious, let's put it that way. So he has a lot of energy. So he was flunked out pretty darn quick because of that. But for our purposes, we want a dog with high drive, high energy. So for detection purposes, he actually works out fantastic. Yeah, and you know, since he's a rescue, our best guess is that he's about 3 years old. Yeah. Oh,
Awesome. And how long did it take to train him to detect the mussels?
so we had a local trainer here. and we actually handed him over as soon as we were able to locate him. So she took him for about 1 month to train him on the scent. So he was trained and ready to go on the scent after about a month. And after that, it was more about fine tuning his skills and giving me the opportunity to learn how to be the handler. So to learn his tells, to you know, he's not a machine. So it's not like you're going to run and buy something. He's going to say, yep, it's right here 100% of the time. He's a dog. So dogs are interested in everything. So, you know, if there's milfoil, he can smell it. He understands that there's something weird there. So he's going to be interested in it. Or if there's a rabbit, a squirrel, anything like that. But it's my job to look at him and to decide if, you know, if he is actually smelling mussels or if he's smelling something else, because dogs are normally interested in anything like that. So, you know, it's my job to see if he sits, is he sitting because he's paying attention to something else or me, or is he sitting because he detects these mussels?
Okay.
So that was the harder part. He was easy to train. It was more on me. And so I want to say by the beginning of June, he was up and running, and he got officially certified by I want to say the end of December. Yeah, but we were using him in the field. He was working just fine. It was more a matter of making sure everything aligned with the trainer and myself to get that certification done. But yeah, I would say from April, he was ready to go. I was ready to go by June.
Well, I want to invite the audience to please put any questions you have for Nick into the Q&A, or any questions for any of the speakers into the Q&A. This is the time to ask him questions regarding his position and Finn and anything else that you're curious about.
Well, people are thinking, I'm just curious, like how much does it cost to get a dog, or like what are the costs and how is that paid for?
So with Finn, he was a rescue. So you have the normal adoption fees. We had the fee to get him up here from Texas. So, you know, that's pretty minimal. The big expense is the training. So with the trainer, we found, I want to say right in the ballpark of about $5,000 for the training. So if you look at our past dog Puddles, she was quite a bit more expensive. I think Justin, you would know the price on that better than I would, but it was, I want to say, up in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. But that's for a fully trained veteran dog that's ready to hit the ground running at that time. But for our program, we're looking to grow the canine program, and that's just not, you know, feasible for that price. So that's why we try to find a local trainer who was able to do that. And, you know, so for him, I would say after all the adoption fees, transportation, training, stuff like that, I'd probably right around the $55,000 to $6,000 mark, which is well below. If you're going to go purchase a dog that's fully trained, you're looking more at the $20,000 to $25,000 range usually. Yeah. And those funds, I believe, come from mostly grants, but we do have some general funds. So I want to say, I think BOR was a big part of getting the canine program started. So, yeah, definitely. And if anyone, this is the question I usually get too, is what breed? So like I said, we try to use, our goal is to use rescue dogs. So we actually did some blood work on them. Catahoula leopard dog, which I had to look up. It is a hog hunting breed from Louisiana, is where it's popular. Also with some blue lacy, blue tick hound, and Australian Kelpie. So he's a good mix of everything. He's excited. Yeah.
What is the most rewarding part of your job in working with Finn?
Oh man, you know, he's great. He's great to be around. He's a lot to handle. Don't be fooled. If anyone's interested in being a canine handler, it is a ton of work. Because then you get that. Yeah. Because usually you're working with high-strung dogs who have a lot of energy. So yeah, there's definitely difficulties. I don't want to paint it like, oh, this is the easiest job. This is the, this is a cakewalk. I get to walk around with the dog all day. But he's also, he gets to stay with me. So he actually lives with me and my family.
Oh,
And I
nice.
think that might be the best part. He gets along great with my kids. I have 2 young children, and that was one thing we wanted to make sure that he was good with, not only for my children, but we also do a lot of education and outreach. So if we're going to elementary schools, we want to make sure he's well around the public. And that's also something that's difficult with working dogs, because they're so focused on their job that they don't always behave the best. So, that was one requirement we had. And then I also have my family dog at home. So the other requirement was we need to find a dog that's also friendly with other dogs. And that also is a big part when we go to outdoor events or different shows. A lot of the times when we show up to these sports shows, they have hunting dogs that they're presenting, or training canines that they're training. So we want also a dog that's friendly with other dogs for different purposes like that. But no, the most rewarding thing I would say is he gets to be part of my family. So that's a lot of fun. And if you're sitting around at work, it can't be worse than a dog, right?
Yeah.
If you're at work by yourself, that's not always that great, but if you have a companion with you all the time, it makes it extremely more enjoyable, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the morning time is his most rowdy time, so he's actually doing
He's ready to
well right
go.
now. Yeah, he's not jumping all over the place yet, but it'll happen. Yeah.
Right.
Nick, what does Finn like to do on his days off?
Oh man, I have a decent sized backyard, and he enjoys he is, like I said, nothing but energy. So I get to let my other dog and him in the back, and it is nothing but a chase for hours and hours. Then when they kind of settle down a little bit, then I send the kids out with them too, so he gets to chase them around. No, but I have some plans. I enjoy ice fishing, so I think we're gonna see if he's good at pulling my ice sled for me. Give me a little break, but yeah, give him another chance to get out and about. But here in the wintertime, the check stations are extremely slow compared to summer. So I've been taking about walks on the loop, and he has discovered voles. We have a lot of voles out there, so he likes to dig through the snow and try to find these little voles running around. So that's kind of his off season. Yeah, excitement. Yeah.
Great. I'm not seeing any other Q&A, so you have a couple more minutes, audience, to put your questions in. In the meantime, if you are seeking pesticide recertification credit for this webinar, please, this will go in the chat. Put your first name, last name, your license number, whether you're in Washington and Oregon, and the code word. And the code word for this webinar is mussels. So here's an example of the format I'm asking for, and there's the code word.
Yeah, and Finn and I are always looking for opportunities to come out and show people what we do and get people interested in what we're trying to accomplish. So, if anybody has an event or a school that they would like us to visit, please reach out. You saw Nick Ramsey's information. So yeah, please reach out. Let us know if you want us to try to attend your events, your shows, your organizations. We're looking to make sure everybody gets to hear the word and make sure everything's clean, dry, and dry, and we keep these things out of the waters.
Definitely.
I know. Good boy. Sit.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and a special thank you to the speakers and to Finn. Thank you, everyone, for your time and teaching us about aquatic invasive species and decontamination. Definitely really appreciate the information and that you took your time out of the day to present for us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.